I'm Gabrielle Ruth Little, your host of Girl Talk Pod. Join me on my many adventures as I navigate through all the shit life has to offer. The rule here is no expectations. Not low expectations, but no expectations. You never know what you're going to hear from this 20-something-year-old who believes in being a student for life, whether it's through a solo episode just hanging out or with a badass guest. Welcome to Girl Talk Pod. Let's talk.
Hey guys, if you're watching, I'm laying on my couch right now like we're in a therapy session. And I've got the head on the headrest. Not really because this couch is not big enough for my long legs, but I'm your therapist today. It's Gabrielle, your host of Girl Talk Pod. And we're going to have a little therapy session today. Just kidding. Fuck this. Hey guys, welcome to episode 10 of Girl Talk Pod. I am absolutely hurting right now because I had a weekend. I had an absolute weekend. I the things that I did this weekend, probably some would maybe do in a span of 3 months. It was nonstop, constantly going. I wouldn't have it any other way because when I tell you all the things that I got into, it's going to sound so fun, but I'm absolutely hurting today. Everything caught up with me. All of the tequila I drank, all of the sleep that I didn't get, all hit me like a semi truck today. So I've been hurting extremely bad, but we got up, we got productive, and I had a interview today, a Zoom interview. So that's why I have my hair done and my makeup done, and it's for a secret project that you'll find out one day, but I did have a fun little secret interview today. So that's why the hair's done and the makeup is done. But Friday, I went to a country concert out in Fort Worth. Chris Young, it was so fun. I love doing a girls' night out in the stockyards. It's a confidence booster in its own, but I also just love dressing up in my boots and my denim and my cowboy hats and just going out there and pretending like I am in a completely different part of the world, and that is the honky tonk. And it's so fun. I love line dancing, I love two stepping. And going out to Billy Bob's, it's the best experience because you can two step with this cowboy man and then he'll dance you around and he'll leave you alone. You will never hear from this man ever again, which that's, I wish more people were like that. Just we do a little dance, we do a little twirl, and then we're done. And that's all we came here for. So fun. I always get a car service to take us to and fro because getting back to Dallas late at night is awful. So, with that being said, we don't have to worry about getting an Uber. We can bring everything we want in the car with us, including champagne, tequila, shooters, all of it. And that's where the weekend began. And that's when we really started to go downhill, but uphill because we had such a great time. And then Saturday, I moseyed myself to work in the morning and then I went to the racetracks to go watch ostriches race, camels, zebras, and horses. And I went to Lone Star Park, and that's the place that I grew up going to country concerts when I was in high school. The first time I ever used a fake ID, I'm not going to tell you how old I was for legal purposes, but I haven't been since high school. And it just brought back a lot of memories and PTSD because my best friend and I, Brooklyn, we got into a fist fight the last time we were there. And that is a core memory that I will have ingrained in my soul my entire life. And so being back there was very interesting to say the least, but it was so fun. A friend of mine got a suite and there was like 30 people there and you could place bets and just watch all the races, and it was so chaotic. And I don't know if you knew this, but people can ride ostriches and they race them, but they did fall off of them, and one man got body checked by an ostrich, and it was iconic. So that's what I did on Saturday, and then we went back out to the stockyards on Saturday night, stayed at the Drover, best hotel ever. I love going to the country bars in the stockyards because the live music, and I never felt old in my life until Saturday. There's TCU next to the stockyards, and I guess now all the college kids go to the stockyards because when I dated a guy that went to TCU, we went to West 7th, which is like sports bars, clubs kind of area. And I guess now they all go to the stockyards, which is so fun. But I've never felt old in my life until Saturday because was surrounded by children, but it was fun. Everyone was tame and we all had a really good time. And then on Sunday, I went to the Renaissance Fair. And this is something about me. This is a fun fact about me is I love the Renaissance Fair. I grew up going to the Texas Renaissance Fair, which is, I believe, the biggest Renaissance fair in the country. And I grew up going there when I was little. And then last year I went as an adult and we camped. And it was one day, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to tell you the story of the Renaissance Festival. I can't do that today, but I'm going to tell you that story one day because it is honestly insane. But they have one up here in Dallas, well, south of Dallas in Waxahachie. So I went yesterday and I do all the work. So we get dressed up, we change our personalities, we speak in the Celtic language, and we watch jousting, and we watch flamethrowers, and we watch the shows, we drink the mead, we eat the food that as they did in the Celtic era, in the Celtic times, and it was so fun. But it was just a lot. It was a lot on my plate for a weekend, and I realized that I've just been doing a little bit too much. I've been doing a little bit too much. And I need to start spending some time at home. Even though I'm trying to figure out where I could go this weekend to possibly get away, I have to tell myself, Gabrielle, you need to sit your ass down and you need to do your laundry and you need to hang out with your animals and you need to stop trying to escape. Because I have found myself doing that recently, is just kind of making up for lost time with friends, but also not really wanting to be home. And I talked to my therapist about this, and I've got some homework with him about just getting back onto my routine and like really figuring out what I want that to look like for me. So that is something I'm working on currently, but it's so fun. We're having so much fun over here. So that's a little catch up of the insane weekend that I had. I'm finally feeling better, but I did not feel well this morning. I actually haven't felt well all weekend, but we rallied and we had such a good time. So let's get into episode number 10. Last week I talked a little bit about what we're going to chat about today as just boundaries, standard setting. Boundary setting and standard setting is something that I'm working on, and it's brand new territory for me because when I was in a therapy session, we talked about boundaries and he was like, what do your boundaries look like? And I was like, he asked me to name a boundary. I didn't have any. I didn't have any boundaries. And that sounds crazy. Like, Gabby, you didn't have any boundaries. Like, no, I literally could not think of one boundary I had with my partner, my family, my friends, and you set boundaries in all places, your workspace, everything. And I had no boundaries to give him. And I was like, wow, that really says a lot about me being a people pleaser and putting everyone else before me constantly. So if you resonate to this and you're asking yourself right now, oh shit, do I have boundaries? What are my boundaries? We're going to do this together. We're going to do this together. I'm going to talk about my experiences with setting boundaries, what that looked like for me. how my life has changed for the better because of it, and a little exercise that you can do to figure out what boundaries look like for you. And so one of the visual exercises that I did was think of a boundary as like a fence around your house. You are the house. The boundaries are the fence. What does that fence look like? Is it a fortress where no one can get in? Or is it a chain link fence that has holes in it that's about 2 feet tall that you could jump over or open the gate? Because that's what my boundaries visually looked like a year ago, before I understood the importance of setting them and how to figure out what they look like for me. So, what is a boundary? What are standards? Boundaries are just kind of non-negotiables that you set in your life to protect yourself, and it's a practice of self-love. Standards are essentially boundaries, but it's just kind of the things that you set for yourself, and they're promises to yourself that you keep and you do not break, because we don't break promises to ourselves. And I'm the first one to break a promise to myself. I can show up for everyone else, but when it's time to fulfill a commitment for myself, I will put it on the back burner, or I will completely blow it off. And well, used to. Now I don't. We got me first, so I can make sure that I'm in the best position to then help everyone else. And that's what I had to learn, because I was like struggling with the idea of it's selfish if I don't put myself second. But how can you genuinely serve others if you are not complete and full yourself? It's doing you a disservice in all of your relationships, your friendships, your family relationships, and your relationships, because that was a problem that I was seeing in my relationships, was I didn't have any boundaries set. And so then when I would start being in a relationship with someone, realizing that I didn't like these certain things, I didn't set that boundary. And then I just keep rocking with it because I don't want to say something and I don't want to mess with the flow. So I think it's really important to set those boundaries prior to getting into committed relationships, because you know what happens when you're 6 months down the line, you realize like this is not really working for me, and then you are in like, you're like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to now have a boundary, and is it supposed to just come out of nowhere? So I think that it's really important to explore these things prior to getting in relationships. And friendships are a little bit more lenient because you're not dating them, and they're not as pressing as, I guess, intimate relationships. But it's important to set them in all parts of your life. So what I did, and this is the exercise that I did, was a tangible exercise, was I got a journal and I asked myself these questions. I asked myself, who the fuck am I? Because that was like the number one thing, was who am I? Someone asks me, pretend like someone's asking you, like, who are you? And that was really hard for me to answer, because I was like, I don't know. I know who I am with my partner. I know what he wants me to be, but who am I? What do I stand for? What are my non-negotiables? What are things that I cannot put up with? What are the things that I like? Another question. What are the things that you like? What are the things that you don't like? Because I found myself saying, I like everything. Like, I'm super adaptable. I'm super go with the flow. But then I would find myself in situations that piss me off. And I'm like, well, actually, wait, I don't like that. So spend some time. That's the number one thing you have to do before doing this process, is spend some time with yourself and get to know who the fuck you are. So then now you can stick to that, and then you're not going to be malleable to someone else, especially if it comes from a place of manipulation. But you are just more likely to get the outcomes that you want and desire if you kind of have these things answered, because you know exactly what you need and whatnot, instead of trying to figure it out. And then, did I already say what do I hate? But if I didn't, I said it again. Or if I did, I said it again. What do I hate? What makes me anxious? And also to build on that, what makes me stressed, what makes me happy, what brings me joy. So asking yourself these questions, you find out what you like and what you value. And then when it comes to boundary setting, you're like, okay, well, does this bring me stress and anxiety? Then fuck that. That's a boundary that we're going to set. Whether it's how someone acts towards you and or whether it's a situation that you put yourself in, you have to understand, I don't like this, so you're not going to do that for yourself. And it's a learning game, right? You might not know if you like it. So if it's an uncertainty thing, you could play it safe and never put yourself in that situation. Or you can put yourself in that situation and figure it out if you like it or not. I want to break this up before I get too into my experience. Well, not in my experience. I just don't want to get off track. I want to be a little bit more structured. So I want to talk about first boundary setting in family. We're going to do family, friends, relationship, because I feel like I'm going to have the most to say about relationships. But I grew up extremely codependent on my mother because I was just so attached to her. I valued her opinion of me so much. I just loved her so much, and that was really bad on our relationship when I got older, because I would let her sometimes treat me certain ways, and that was disrespectful and wasn't healthy. So I had to learn that I'm an adult. I will always respect my mom. I will always have unconditional love for her, but I'm an adult trying to create my own life and my own family. So, and I have the decision to be spoken to the way that I want to be spoken to and treated the way that I want to be treated. I will always respect her, whatever that looks like, but I do not have to put up with certain things just because she's my mom. And this is applicable not even just to my mom, it's also with my abuse and my family having relationships with my abuser. I had to set the boundary that I will never show up to anything that this person is at, because my entire life before I had a choice, I would have to go be around this person, or I just didn't think that I could set that boundary because I thought it was going to take away from my relationships with my other family. And I had to realize that I can put in the work and go and spend time with other people in my family outside of these like big elaborate family things like holidays and stuff. So I realized I don't have to put myself in these situations if I don't want to be in them. And that is a liberating feeling. And I can maintain, again, the relationships with people that I want to maintain. And if they're triggered by the fact that I want to set boundaries, then maybe I also need to evaluate our relationship and if they're healthy to be in my life. And so tie that back up to the top is this is applicable with a lot of people in my family and not just my mom. It's been in situations with my stepmom if she wanted to, speak about if there's ever been a conversation about someone else in my family, I'd set the boundary of I don't want to sit and gossip and I don't want to negatively talk about other people. So those are just conversations I am not going to partake in. And also just same with, there's just multiple people in your family, and I was just giving my personal example about my mother. So that has been the best thing for our relationship because she knows that I love her and she knows that I want to be respected, and it changed our relationship ever since that boundary was set by me, multiple boundaries were set by me, then our relationship has been amazing. We've not argued. If we do get heated, it's a quick kind of let's snap out of it and let's approach this in a different way. And there's just so much more calm and collected conversations now because there's a level of respect that I demand in my relationships with everybody, but that was really good for our relationship. So that's an example of family. And it's hard because you love your family and you grow up as, you know, you need to respect your elders. And these are, my mom is like, I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it, jokingly. But that was just kind of like the mentality. But you're an adult and no one can disrespect you and treat you the way that you don't want to be treated. And now we'll pivot into the friendships part, because I've struggled with this in friendships too, as I was extremely available for my friends. I was always down to do whatever. I didn't want to say no, a little mix of FOMO, but also I didn't want to make anyone mad, or I didn't want anyone to think that, you know, I wasn't down and I wasn't cool. And like, even in times I really just want to like spend time with myself, I would go out and just like be supportive of my friend if they wanted to go and do all the things. And if I really didn't want to do anything, I would still go, and then I would hate where I was or hate who I was around. And then I was just in a bad mood, and then I had a bad experience. And then it's a domino effect from there. And so learning to be able to say no and prioritize the things that you want to do, like spending time with yourself. If you don't want to be in certain situations, your true friend will understand that. And it's just communication. And it's not like I communicated it and they were like pissed. They're like, okay, I'll ask someone else. So I'm over here causing myself anxiety because I think that they're going to be upset with me. So I just go, and then if all I would have done was just communicate, hey, like, I'm just not really into this and I want to spend time with you another way, then they were very receptive of that. So just communicate the things that are, you know, possibly causing you stress and anxiety, because 99% of the time your friends don't want to make you feel that way, and whatever they're wanting to do is really not that important. So that's just an example. And then also, I don't know if y'all have friends like this, but I have friends that are extremely kind of sensitive, and I was always just like super concerned with my friends having a good time. Or so this would kind of be like the inverse of what the example I just gave is. Like, if I invited my friends to things, I would just kind of go above and beyond to make the experience absolutely great for them. But I had to realize that they're grown-ups, and if they don't want to be here and if they don't want to do anything, they can communicate that to me as now I do to them. So I would just bend over backwards, and I would just take it so personal if they weren't having a good time. And then there are times where, you know, they weren't having a good time, but that's their decision to remove themselves from the situation. And I would just take it super personally until I set the boundary that they're adults, and if they don't want to come, they don't want to come, and I don't need to take it personal. And also, it's not my job to be the keeper of attitudes, because that's what I was. And then it took away from my experience as well. So those are a few boundaries things with friends. And those are just kind of, again, my relationships got better. I didn't feel pressure. We communicated. Our communication is better. And everything just gets better when you set boundaries. So if you can take away one thing from this video today, it's if you want a better life, set boundaries, because it is an act of self-love. And that's something that I do want to talk about kind of in the future, is like my self-love journey, because I had really bad self-confidence, and some of the things that I've explored recently, I just have to share. So we'll talk about that another time, but I'm just like constantly researching ways that I can show myself self-love. And it doesn't have to be like take yourself on a big shopping spree or go to get a massage, which those are all valid ways of self-love, but there are just so many simple ways of self-love that you can integrate in your life on the daily. And I'm kind of exploring and playing with those things too. So when I get all my thoughts in order, you will hear about it. You will hear from me. Okay, now for the last genre, the last boundary setting genre in relationships. This is where I've obviously struggled the most. We saved the worst for last. It's been really hard for me, but I've loved the realization that I have made in especially the last couple of weeks about how my lack of boundary setting has caused certain situations that have been themes in my relationship. So, me always thinking that I was very adaptable to my partner, that's kind of how I would rose colored glasses the lack of standards and boundaries and kind of respect for myself. But it also is just not knowing myself. That's like, again, I said earlier, is most important and number one step you have to do is just figure out like who you are. Spend some time, date yourself, figure out who you are, what you stand for, because if you don't know and you get into relationships, it's easy for you to be manipulated or just kind of thinking that you're not doing certain things right, but in reality it's just things that you don't like, or it's just not, that's against a standard or boundary that you have. So in relationships, I think it is so important to know yourself, really get to know yourself. I want to know the things that make me smile, the things that make me laugh, because I didn't. And I just thought everything was funny and I thought everything made me happy. So then I was like, oh, this is like a great guy because this, but then I get, wait, no, this doesn't make me happy. This doesn't make me smile. This doesn't make me laugh. I'm just trying to people please. And I just want to make them feel like they're funny and that they make me happy. And so I just think that if I would have spent a little bit more time getting to know myself and having these boundaries and standards set, I would have wasted a lot of time, or my relationships or my relationships could have been a lot better. Because if I came out of the gates knowing what was cool and what wasn't, either they're like, I'm not down for this, or two, they would have respected that and then lines wouldn't have been crossed. And that's the number one thing, or not the number one thing, a big thing I want you to take away from this is like boundaries are a form of respect for yourself. And once people see that these are your boundaries, they're going to see that respect that you have for yourself and they're going to treat you as such. If they see someone that has no respect for themselves, it's likely they're not going to treat you with the amount of respect that you deserve, or any at all, because you don't know what that feels like. So if they treat you in a way of disrespect, you might not know and be able to recognize that that's what's happening. So again, boundaries equal self-respect, and it's so important. I just had a ghost experience in my house, and so I got distracted. But we are respecting ourselves and we are going to radiate the energy of respect by having boundaries. And I am in the mindset of when I start dating, I am not going to be fearful of laying these all out on the line when I am interested in a man right at the beginning. Right at the beginning. Because I just do not want to waste any time. And also, I think that it's just nice to show that, this is the respect that I have for myself. And then you just set the tone for the relationship. You can be adaptable. Your boundaries can change. They can grow as you grow. But most of the concrete things like, me time. I want to spend time with my girlfriends. I'm going to have a healthy balance. I love my family. I'm going to prioritize spending time with them. I'm going to have things that I'm passionate about and things that make me feel alive, whether that is me podcasting, me putting myself out there, sharing my stories of ugly traumas that might make people uncomfortable, or health and fitness, like prioritizing that. I'm going to need to take care of myself. I have these commitments, whether it's work. I have to work these amount of hours every single day. I want to stay at my house on these amount of nights if you're splitting time between you and your partner. Those are some examples of boundaries that I have and that I learned in my relationship, but also in this past couple these past couple weeks. And I think that's what I was actually saying earlier before I had the ghost experience, was that's been my number one goal in these last couple of weeks, is really finding out what my boundaries are so I can be excited to go out in the dating world again and just like lay it all out. So that is where I'm currently at with the boundaries and standard settings. And I love doing the little journal check-in. Get these questions that you ask yourself. How am I feeling? What do I like today? What do I not like anymore? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? And what are the things that I really need to be doing for myself to make me feel like me and make me feel like I'm being productive and making me feel like I'm growing in all facets of my life? So those are good check-in questions. And I just think that if you're like me and have had problems or struggled with being kind of a people pleaser at times and just really putting others before you, I think that doing these exercises will help you so much. And I know that there's like a fine line between the definitions of standards and boundaries. When I think of standards just personally, I think I bring standards more into like the dating aspect of it, of just like these are kind of some non-negotiables for me and what I expect from my partner. And I just think it's so important to just add that to your tool belt, because it, one, I feel like could just make dating easier, but also it could just make it more exciting. Like it's you get to see where you align with someone else, and you can just prevent a lot of bullshit and just a lot of I don't want to say wasted time, because everything can necessarily be a learning experience, but still I just think that there could definitely be some avoidance of just bullshit if you do this work. So that's kind of a scrape the surface of the relationship, setting boundaries and kind of figuring it out. When I talk to some people about the podcast, I've gotten feedback about deeper. I want you to go, I want more from you. So please let me know if y'all are feeling the same way. These are just some of the people that I've talked to. I just kind of want to keep it broad in the sense of my experience is not yours, but it is relatable, and your experience is not mine. And I also am just talking from my end. So I don't want anyone to think like this is textbook, and this is just the things that I've gone through. And so that's something that I've been thinking about, something that's been on my heart since I have gotten some feedback from those people. All right, so what we're going to do from here on out is we're going to honor our commitments to ourselves. We're going to spend some time with ourselves, journal, think in your head. I have to write things down because there's so much going on in my head. But journaling, asking yourself questions, getting to know what really makes you you. And then once we figure out those boundaries, we're going to communicate them to whoever in our life needs to hear them. And we're not going to think it's selfish by setting these boundaries. You can still be your kind, giving, and loving self, but we've got to protect ourselves, because if we're running on an empty cup, how are we genuinely supposed to pour into others? You know? And that's really all I have about boundaries and standard settings. If you want to chat with me about what specific boundaries that I have figured out and standards that I have set, reach out to me. I talk to so many of you, and it makes my life, because that's like what my purpose is to be a tool and a vessel. But also, so I've had multiple people be like, when I listen to the show, it's like we're just hanging out, it's just like girls, but also multiple people have said it's like a virtual hug. And that makes me extremely emotional, one, but it brings me so much joy because that's exactly what I want this to feel like. Like we're girls, we're just talking, or we're boy and girls just talking about these experiences, and I just want to be relatable. And I also love learning. So if you want to come to me about certain things that you've experienced and that you've like that have worked for you in the situations that maybe that I've been in, and I would love to hear that. So like constantly send me feedback, send me love, send me all the things because that's just my purpose is I want to collaborate and I want to grow and I want to be the best version of myself for me and all the other people in my life. So I actually have a surprise for you next week. So I'm not going to talk about what we're going to talk about next week, but I am leaving for Brooke's wedding on Wednesday or sometime next week. And I can't believe it. I'm going to be in Cabo. I am not going to film a Cabo episode because I really want to be intentional while I'm there. I want to be grounded. I want to be present, but I'm so excited. Like, I don't know if you're listening, if your best friend, soul sister, like sister from another mister, separated at birth, separated in the universal womb, has gotten married. But I know it's going to be one of the most emotional days, but also going to be one of the best days of my life. So I'm really excited for that. So I'll be in Cabo next week, and I will see you next Tuesday. And I really hope that you like this episode. And if you do, I would love for you to leave a review and or subscribe, like, comment. I'm on YouTube. YouTube's going off. I love putting out videos for you guys, so give me any feedback there. And that's all I have. I'll see you next Tuesday. Mwah.